Let me ask, what's the strangest thing about this country? It is when I wake up tomorrow morning, any morning, the first bit of fear I have doesn't concern our national enemies, our traditional Cold War or whatever kind of war enemies. I'm not afraid of those people at all. So then who am I afraid of? Because I'm definitely afraid of somebody. Listen, and I'll tell you. I'm afraid of my own country. I'm afraid of the United States of America. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But look, take the Pentagon. If anybody kills us on a grand scale, it'll be the Pentagon. On a small scale, watch out for your local police. Look at you looking at me that way. Some of you question. Will two polite, college-educated, of course friendly agents of the brainwashed squad knock on my door at 3 in the morning? You see my winning, infectious smile, and you know I'm not worried. This is America. We say what we want. I could talk all day, citing chapter and verse. Why, hello, Tube. Today, we have End Zone by Don DeLillo. If you like your own copy, you can use my affiliate link down below to bookshop.org, or if you use it to purchase this book or any book, you get an awesome book at no extra cost to you, and I get a small commission. You can also support the channel by liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, all that stuff. And finally, there's timestamps down below if you want to skip around within the video. Maybe you don't want to listen to my About section of Don DeLillo yet again. So, Which brings me to my About section about Don DeLillo. Don DeLillo was born in 1936 in the Bronx, and his early years in New York shaped the way he saw America's culture of noise, advertising, and spectacle. He worked briefly in advertising before publishing his first novel, Americana, in 1971, a book already obsessed with media and identity. Over the next 2 decades, DeLillo became one of the defining voices of postmodern fiction. His breakthrough, White Noise, in 1985, won the National Book Award, captivated the absurdity of consumer culture and our fear of death. He followed it with Libra in 1988, a daring reimagining of the JFK assassination, and Mao Too in 1991, which explored terrorism and the shrinking role of the novelist in a world dominated by mass movements. Then came Underworld in 1997, often considered his masterpiece, a sweeping Cold War epic that began with a baseball game and spirals outward to nuclear anxiety, waste, and a hidden connection of everyday life. Across all these works, DeLillo examines how technology, politics, and media shapes humanity, identity, and often with dark humor and unsettling clarity. So far, these books are absolutely hilarious. Even though they're dark, they are funny. So when we talk about Don DeLillo, we're not just talking about the novels. We're talking about a writer who mapped the psychic landscape of the 20th century America, whose questions about noise, fear, and meaning still resonate today. About End Zone, it's first published by, I think it's Houghton Mifflin. I couldn't figure out how it was supposed to be pronounced. I even looked. It didn't make any sense to me because I'm not very smart. First published in March 1972 in the United States of America. And the first edition hardback was 242 pages. A brief synopsis stolen from the bookshop.org that I have an affiliate link down below for. Yeah. Nice little ad there, A dark, funny satire of human nature and American college football set against the backdrop of the Cold War by the author of the National Book Award-winning novel White Noise. At Logos College in West Texas, huge young men vacuum-packed into shoulder pads and shiny helmets play football with an intense passion. During an uncharacteristic winning season, the perplexed and distracted running back Gary Harkness has periodic fits of nuclear glee, fueled by his fear and fascination with nuclear conflict. As the line between football and nuclear war blurs, the actions of the players become unorthodox and even bizarre, reflecting the disconcerting reality of a world teetering on the brink of destruction. In this triumphantly funny, deeply searching novel, Don DeLillo explores the metaphor of football as war with rich and original zeal. Which, I gotta say, spoiler alert for my thoughts, I didn't see the connection very well. To me, it felt like a novel about football with a like an offshoot of nuclear war. Like I didn't see it completely like intertwined. It just may have went over my head. I don't know. So, but the reflections that I got from this book, End Zone. One of the biggest takeaways from End Zone is how Don DeLillo blurs the line between sports and warfare. Football isn't just a game in this novel. It becomes a metaphor for strategy, violence, and a strange way we ritualize conflict. Don DeLillo shows us how easily the language of the battlefield slips into the locker room, and both systems rely on discipline, spectacle, and controlled aggression. I just wish that I don't even know how to explain how I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be like a, I don't know. I just wanted it to be even more so. But I mean, I wasn't the author. I can't explain how I wanted it in my head. I just wanted it to be more of a combined read of the sports, and I don't know. I can't put it to words. One of the big I already read that part. I'm going off of the script. I wrote a script, and I'm suck at reading script. And I'll probably end up stop doing a script eventually, just because I'm so terrible at it. But then I end up forgetting a bunch of stuff. So I don't know. I can't win at this. Another major reflection is the seductive pull of order and destruction. The characters cling to structure, playbooks, routines, military theory, because it gives them a sense of control. But Don DeLillo suggests that the same systems designed to protect us can also reinforce our collective impulses towards violence. It is a pretty violent book. So, And football is a violent sport, and so is nuclear war. So. The novel also dives deep into nihilism and emotional detachment. Gary Harkness' obsession with nuclear war isn't just academic, it's a way of avoiding intimacy and responsibility. His fixation becomes a shield, allowing him to retreat from the messiness of real human connection. So basically he's going to see a professor, I guess maybe the ROTC, it's the guy that's maybe the leader of the ROTC, teaches a class or whatever. And basically he's sitting in on this class, and, the professor sees that this guy Gary has a real passion for it, and actually could do great things in the Air Force. I believe it was the Air Force he was trying to talk him into. And Gary just doesn't want anything of it. He likes the ideas of war and the game aspect of it, but he doesn't want to actually go and kill people, essentially, And beneath all this quiet sadness about the frailty of human connection, even surrounded by teammates, Gary feels isolated. The ritual of modern life, practice, meetings, cafeteria routines become both comforting and absurd, highlighting how easy we slip into patterns that keep us from confronting reality. And he does have like a love interest in the book that takes up a very small portion of the book. But yeah, there isn't a lot of like normal human connection in this book. Finally, the novel offers a sharp critique of American masculinity, the idea that sports and military build character, exposed as hollow. Instead, Don DeLillo shows these institutions often produce conformity, repression, and fascination with violence disguised as discipline. And how many people do you know that were big into sports, and then when the sports went away, they just kind of just live off of, what happened, in my case, 24 years ago. It's kind of sad, right? Like these people, the likelihood of going to the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, or whatever is so dramatically small. Yet sports become such a huge part of everyday life for so many people that they just kind of seem to kind of wander the world empty after high school. They peak in high school, you could say. End Zone is a funny, bleak, and unsettling novel about how people cope with fear by burying themselves on systems that promise order, but those systems often lead right back to chaos. they're trying to avoid. So those were the reflections. Now my overall thoughts of this book. I absolutely adored this book. Thing is, you really have to be a football fan to enjoy it because so much of the novel is rooted in the sport. There's even a long section devoted just to one single game. They're basically the middle, 50-ish pages maybe. It's just one football game against the big tough rival. So if you're not into football, or maybe you're just like a Super Bowl watcher and that's about it, this will likely just be a slog. When the book isn't talking about football, it does shift into discussions of nuclear war. I actually wish those two threads were woven together more, like I said earlier. It kind of feels like it's a story about football and a story about war. There is a little bit of overlap, yes. Or maybe there's a lot of overlap and it just completely went over my head. That is possibility too. So, but it does feel like kind of two different stories kind of smushed together. But even so, the novel is so much fun that I found myself overlooking the feeling of the disconnect of the war and the football. And then growing up, I remember, football being compared to going to war. Like they're going to battle, they're the warriors and stuff like that. And I feel like that language has largely fallen out of favor. I can't really pinpoint when, but maybe around like 9/11 and then the whole Pat Tillman thing where, Pat Tillman, the NFL player, the patriotic man, went to fight in, what was it, Afghanistan or whatever, got killed by friendly fire, and then there's a whole conspiracy behind that where, a lot of people think that, Pat Tillman was, using his voice, his basically his audience to say how essentially we shouldn't be here, that this is a war that we shouldn't be fighting. And so a lot of people think that that our own troops took him out to, basically shut him up, which is scary. And I believe it could happen. I don't know whether or not that's the truth or not, but I fully believe that, if people wanted him to shut up, that they would go to those extents. So, but I always thought that analogy was strange. So I really wasn't sad to see that when that kind of faded away. And let me know down below if you remember that, or if I'm misremembering that. And when do you think that it kind of largely fallen out of favor by comparing football, players to warriors? But I think I remember that. Finally, compared to Don DeLillo's debut novel Americana, this book feels a lot more focused and much less chaotic. It's still pretty chaotic. But it's half the size of Americana. It's a lot more, Americana at points just felt like Don DeLillo was kind of just going off on tangents, just to maybe not necessarily padding the book, but just maybe out of the lack of self-control. But this being a much shorter book, it was a lot more focused, and the storytelling was a lot more sharp and kind of free of the fluff. It was just a genuinely enjoyable read, and I'm really looking forward to jumping into the next book in the Don DeLillo bibliography, Great Jones Street. So it's kind of going from Americana to End Zone was kind of night and day. Like I feel like he grew a lot between the two, or maybe he got a better editor. I don't know, but maybe there's a budget for a better editor. Wow, I think that's it for Don DeLillo End Zone. Let me know down below. Have you read it? What did you think of it? Am I right? Am I wrong? Yeah, all that stuff. Cheers, peeps.